Summary of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Book 1. Have you ever wondered what it means to live a truly good life? Not just a life filled with fleeting pleasures or material success, but one of lasting happiness and purpose. Over 2,000 years ago, the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle tackled this question in one of his most influential works, the Nicomachean Ethics. This timeless book lays the foundation for much of Western ethical thought and continues to inspire philosophers, scholars, and seekers of wisdom today. In this video, we'll dive into Book 1 of the Nicomachean Ethics, where Aristotle begins his exploration of the ultimate purpose of human life he calls eudaimonia, or flourishing. Whether you're a philosophy enthusiast or simply curious about how to live well, you'll find his ideas both profound and practical. So, grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's explore Aristotle's guide to living the good life. Book 1 serves as the gateway to Aristotle's ethical philosophy. Here, Aristotle identifies the ultimate goal of human life and lays out the groundwork for understanding how we achieve it. The central question is this: what is the highest good? Aristotle argues that everything we do aims at some good, but there must be one ultimate good that is pursued for its own sake. That good, he concludes, is happiness eudaimonia, not just the fleeting feeling of joy, but a deep and enduring sense of flourishing. This idea underpins the rest of the work, making Book 1 an essential starting point for anyone seeking to understand Aristotle's ethics. Book 1 unfolds like a philosophical journey, beginning with the big picture and narrowing down to the specifics. Let's break it down. The good as the goal of action. Aristotle opens by asserting that every action and pursuit aims at some good. For example, the goal of medicine is health, and the goal of strategy is victory. But he asks, is there a single highest good that gives meaning to all other goals? The nature of happiness. He then introduces eudaimonia, the idea that happiness is the ultimate purpose of life. But this isn't about fleeting pleasures. Aristotle emphasizes that true happiness is tied to living a virtuous and rational life. The function argument. Next, Aristotle argues that everything has a purpose, or telos. For humans, our unique function is rational activity. Living well, therefore, means performing this function excellently, in accordance with virtue. The role of external goods. Finally, Aristotle acknowledges that while virtue is essential for happiness, external factors like health, wealth, and friendships also play a role. This makes his philosophy both idealistic and realistic. Let's dig deeper into the central ideas of Book 1. Eudaimonia. This isn't just happiness as we often think of it, it's about fulfilling our potential and living in harmony with our nature as rational beings. It's a state of flourishing that encompasses both moral virtue and intellectual achievement. The hierarchy of ends. Aristotle explains that every action serves a purpose, but some purposes are more ultimate than others. For instance, we pursue wealth to live comfortably, but comfort is a means to a greater end, like happiness. This hierarchy culminates in eudaimonia, the end goal that gives life meaning. The function argument. Aristotle asks, what is the unique function of humans? His answer, rational activity. Living a good life means using reason to guide our actions and cultivating virtues that help us excel. Aristotle's arguments are both profound and practical. His vision of happiness as flourishing challenges us to think beyond material success or fleeting pleasure. It's a deeply holistic view of life that integrates reason, virtue, and external goods. However, his ideas aren't without criticism. For one, Aristotle's emphasis on reason may overlook the importance of emotions and relationships in achieving happiness. And while his acknowledgement of external goods is realistic, it raises questions about how accessible eudaimonia is for people in difficult circumstances. Despite these critiques, Aristotle's ethical framework remains incredibly relevant. It reminds us that happiness isn't something we stumble upon, it's something we actively cultivate through intentional living. To make these ideas more relatable, let's consider a modern example. Imagine you're pursuing a college degree. The immediate goal is to graduate, but why? Perhaps it's to land a job. And why do you want that job? Maybe it's to achieve financial stability. But ultimately, these smaller goals point toward the greater goal of living a happy and fulfilling life, your own version of eudaimonia. This is the hierarchy of ends in action, with all your smaller goals serving the ultimate goal of flourishing. Aristotle's book, One of Nicomachean Ethics, challenges us to ask life's big questions. What is our purpose? What does it mean to live well? His answer that true happiness comes from living a life of virtue and reason remains as relevant today as it was in ancient Greece. Summary of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Book 2. Welcome back to our journey through Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. In Book 1, we explored the ultimate purpose of human life, eudaimonia, or flourishing. But how do we actually achieve this? What practical steps can we take to cultivate a good life? That's where Book 2 comes in. Aristotle shifts the focus to the nature of virtue and how we develop it through habits and practice. In this video, we'll break down his key ideas, from the concept of moral virtue to the famous doctrine of the golden mean. Get ready to dive into a guide for living virtuously, one that's as relevant today as it was in ancient Greece. In Book 2, Aristotle introduces us to the practical side of ethics. While Book 1 set the theoretical foundation, Book 2 focuses on moral virtues, qualities of character that guide our actions toward the good. Aristotle emphasizes that virtues aren't innate, but are cultivated through habit. This book answers fundamental questions. What makes a person virtuous? How do we find balance in our actions and emotions? And most importantly, how can we train ourselves to consistently choose the right path? Book 2 is organized into several key discussions. The definition of virtue. Aristotle distinguishes between intellectual and moral virtues. While intellectual virtues stem from teaching, moral virtues arise through habit and practice. The role of habituation. Virtue is not something we are born with, but something we develop through repeated actions. Just as a musician becomes skilled by practicing, we become virtuous by repeatedly choosing virtuous actions. The doctrine of the mean. Aristotle's most famous ethical principle is introduced here. Virtue lies in finding the balance, the mean between two extremes, such as recklessness and cowardice, with courage being the virtuous mean. Pleasure and pain. Aristotle explains that the pursuit of virtue is deeply connected to how we handle pleasure and pain. A virtuous person takes pleasure in good actions and avoids harmful ones. Let's delve into the core ideas of Book 2. Virtue as a habit. Aristotle emphasizes that moral virtue isn't an inherent trait, but a skill we develop. For instance, someone doesn't become generous overnight, they cultivate generosity by consistently performing generous acts. The doctrine of the mean. This principle teaches that virtue is about moderation. Take courage. For example, too much courage leads to recklessness, while too little results in cowardice. The virtuous path lies in the middle. The mean isn't the same for everyone. It depends on individual circumstances and context. Aristotle's ethics are flexible, allowing for personal judgment. Pleasure and pain as ethical indicators. Aristotle argues that our emotional responses, what we find pleasurable or painful, reveal our character. A virtuous person feels joy in doing good and discomfort in wrongdoing, which is a sign of their moral development. Book 2 offers practical wisdom, but also raises some interesting questions. Strengths. Aristotle's emphasis on habit makes his ethics actionable. Anyone can begin cultivating virtue by consciously practicing good actions. The doctrine of the mean is a versatile principle, applicable to countless aspects of life from decision-making to emotional regulation. Critiques. One challenge is the subjectivity of the mean. Determining the right balance often requires wisdom and experience, which not everyone may possess. Aristotle's approach assumes a certain level of stability and privilege. Developing virtues may be more challenging in difficult circumstances where survival takes precedence over ethical refinement. To bring Aristotle's ideas to life, let's consider some examples. Imagine someone working on patience. If they're naturally quick-tempered, they might practice waiting calmly in frustrating situations, like heavy traffic. Over time, these repeated efforts make patience a habit. Or think about generosity. A person might start by donating small amounts of money or volunteering their time. As they consistently act generously, they develop a generous character. These examples show how virtue isn't an abstract concept, it's something we actively build through daily choices. In Book 2 of Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle gives us a roadmap for cultivating moral virtue. Virtue isn't something we're born with, it's something we develop through deliberate practice and finding balance in our actions and emotions. This approach reminds us that living a good life isn't about perfection but progress. It's about striving to become better through consistent effort and thoughtful choices. Summary of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Book 3. Welcome back to our exploration of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. In Books 1 and 2, we learned about the ultimate goal of human life, eudaimonia, and how moral virtues are developed through habituation. Now, in Book 3, Aristotle takes us deeper into the mechanics of moral decision-making and virtue. How do we choose the right actions? What role do our intentions and circumstances play? And how does courage factor into a virtuous life? Book 3 is a fascinating dive into human responsibility, choice, and the virtues of character. Let's explore these timeless lessons together. Book 3 addresses two key themes: moral responsibility and specific virtues, especially courage. Aristotle begins by examining voluntary and involuntary actions, which are essential for understanding accountability. He then transitions to discuss deliberate choice and how it shapes our moral character. Finally, Aristotle offers an in-depth look at the virtue of courage, providing examples and insights into how we confront fear and challenges in our pursuit of the good life. Book 3 unfolds in three key sections: voluntary and involuntary actions. Aristotle explores the conditions under which actions are considered voluntary or involuntary. This distinction is critical for assigning moral responsibility. Deliberate choice and responsibility. The focus shifts to the role of rational deliberation in ethical behavior, emphasizing that our choices reflect our character. Courage as a virtue. Aristotle examines courage as the first specific virtue, defining it as the balance between fear and confidence in the face of danger. Let's unpack the core concepts of Book 3. Voluntary versus involuntary actions. Actions are voluntary when they originate from the individual and are performed with knowledge of the circumstances. For example, choosing to help a friend in need is a voluntary action. Actions are involuntary if they are performed under compulsion or ignorance. However, Aristotle distinguishes between actions done out of ignorance and those done in ignorance, which can complicate responsibility. This distinction is crucial because only voluntary actions are subject to moral praise or blame. Deliberate choice and moral responsibility. Aristotle emphasizes the importance of rational deliberation in making choices. We evaluate our options and choose the best course of action based on our understanding of the good. These choices are not random, they reflect our character. A person with a virtuous character will consistently make virtuous choices, while a person with a flawed character may struggle to act rightly. Courage. Aristotle introduces courage as the first specific virtue of character. He defines it as the mean between two extremes, recklessness and cowardice. Courage involves facing fear appropriately, especially in situations of life and death. However, Aristotle notes that courage isn't about fearlessness, it's about enduring fear for a noble cause. True courage is motivated by reason and virtue, not by a desire for glory or external rewards. Book 3 provides profound insights, but it also invites critical reflection. Strengths. Aristotle's exploration of voluntary and involuntary actions lays the foundation for understanding moral accountability, a concept still relevant in modern ethics and law. The emphasis on deliberate choice highlights the active role individuals play in shaping their moral character, empowering us to take responsibility for our actions. His nuanced discussion of courage offers a practical framework for navigating fear and adversity in a balanced way. Critiques. Aristotle's focus on rational deliberation may overlook the emotional and psychological complexities that influence human decision-making. His perspective on courage, while inspiring, may feel idealized and challenging to apply in nuanced modern contexts, such as chronic stress or moral dilemmas. Overall, Aristotle's ideas remain compelling but require adaptation to address the complexities of contemporary life. To illustrate these ideas, imagine someone facing a moral dilemma, such as reporting a friend who has committed a minor theft. If the person reports the theft out of a sense of justice, their action is voluntary and reflects their commitment to virtue. For courage, think of a firefighter entering a burning building to save lives. They experience fear but act because of their dedication to a noble cause, exemplifying Aristotle's definition of courage. In Book 3 of Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle deepens our understanding of moral responsibility and the nature of virtue. By distinguishing voluntary from involuntary actions, he provides a framework for accountability. Through deliberate choice, we actively shape our character. And with courage, we find the strength to face fear in pursuit of the good. As you reflect on these teachings, consider how your own choices and actions reflect your character. Are you striving to act deliberately and virtuously? How do you confront fear and challenges in your life? Summary of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Book 4. Welcome back to our series on Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. So far, we've explored the foundations of virtue, moral responsibility, and specific virtues like courage. Now, in Book 4, Aristotle shifts focus to a fascinating array of moral virtues that govern our interactions with others and our own self-expression. How should we handle wealth? How do we find the right balance between boasting and humility? And how can we embody the virtue of wit in social settings? Aristotle dives into these questions, offering practical wisdom that's as relevant now as it was in ancient Greece. Let's explore the nuanced lessons of Book 4 together. Book 4 is a detailed exploration of virtues related to social conduct and interpersonal relationships. Aristotle moves beyond foundational virtues like courage and justice to focus on the more specific qualities that make someone admirable in their community. These include generosity, magnificence, magnanimity, friendliness, truthfulness, and wit. Each virtue is presented as a mean between two extremes, emphasizing balance and moderation as the keys to ethical living. Book 4 is divided into discussions of 6 key virtues, each addressing a different aspect of social life. Generosity, the proper use of wealth in everyday life. Magnificence, a virtue concerning the grand use of wealth for public benefit. Magnanimity, the quality of striving for great things while remaining humble. Friendliness, appropriate behavior in social interactions, balancing flattery and rudeness. Truthfulness, honesty and self-expression, avoiding both boastfulness and self-deprecation. Wit, the virtue of appropriate humor in social settings. Let's break down the key virtues Aristotle discusses in Book 4. Generosity. Aristotle defines generosity as the proper management of wealth. A generous person gives willingly to the right people at the right time and in the right amount. The extremes to avoid are wastefulness and stinginess. Generosity is not about the quantity of giving, but the intention and wisdom behind it. Magnificence. This virtue applies to larger-scale expenditures, such as funding public works or hosting grand events. Magnificence lies between vulgar ostentation and pettiness. Magnanimity. A magnanimous person aspires to achieve great things, but is also grounded and aware of their limitations. The extremes here are vanity and pusillanimity. Magnanimity reflects an alignment of self-respect with the pursuit of noble goals. Friendliness. This virtue governs social relationships. Friendliness is about being pleasant and respectful without being overly ingratiating or excessively blunt. Aristotle highlights the balance between being overly obsequious and being quarrelsome or rude. Truthfulness. Truthfulness is about representing oneself accurately, avoiding both boastfulness and false modesty. A truthful person doesn't exaggerate their achievements or diminish their worth, they express themselves honestly. Wit. Aristotle considers wit a virtue of social charm and appropriate humor. A witty person knows how to use humor to bring joy without being hurtful or crude. Wit lies between buffoonery and boorishness. Book 4 provides a rich and nuanced look at the virtues that shape our social and public lives. Here's what stands out. Strengths. Aristotle's focus on balance is practical and timeless. Whether managing wealth or interacting socially, his emphasis on moderation offers guidance for daily life. The discussion of virtues like wit and friendliness makes ethics relatable, addressing behaviors we encounter in our everyday interactions. Critiques. Aristotle's focus on wealth-related virtues, such as magnificence, reflects the societal norms of his time and may feel less accessible to those without significant resources. Some virtues, like magnanimity, might seem overly idealized, requiring a level of self-awareness and societal status that not everyone can achieve. Despite these limitations, Aristotle's insights offer valuable lessons for cultivating character and navigating complex social dynamics. Examples or illustrations. Let's bring these virtues to life with examples. A generous person might regularly donate to charity, ensuring their contributions are meaningful and impactful rather than impulsive. Magnificence could be exemplified by a philanthropist funding a hospital or a community center actions that benefit the public without being ostentatious. Wit might be displayed by someone who uses humor to ease tension in a conversation without making others uncomfortable. These examples show how Aristotle's virtues are not abstract, they are practical qualities we can observe and strive for in everyday life. In Book 4 of Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle offers a comprehensive guide to social virtues that enhance our relationships and our community contributions. From generosity to wit, these qualities remind us that ethical living isn't just about individual flourishing, it's about creating harmony and joy in the world around us. So, as you reflect on these teachings, consider how you embody these virtues in your own life. Are you generous with your resources? Do you bring balance to your social interactions? Summary of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Book 5. Welcome back to our exploration of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. In this episode, we're diving into Book 5, where Aristotle tackles one of the most foundational aspects of ethical and social life: justice. Justice is a virtue that affects not just individuals, but entire communities. It governs how we interact, distribute resources, and address fairness in our relationships. In Book 5, Aristotle dissects the different forms of justice, their applications, and their significance in building a harmonious society. Join us as we unpack these profound ideas, making them relevant to both ancient philosophy enthusiasts and modern thinkers alike. Book 5 of Nicomachean Ethics is dedicated entirely to the virtue of justice, which Aristotle considers unique because it encompasses both individual conduct and social harmony. Justice, he explains, is the complete virtue that relates to others, ensuring fairness and equality in human interactions. Unlike other virtues that focus on the individual, justice is inherently relational, addressing how we treat one another and distribute benefits and burdens within society. The structure of Book 5 follows a logical progression. Definition of justice. Aristotle begins by defining justice as the lawful and fair, distinguishing it from injustice, which is unlawful and unfair. Types of justice. He then categorizes justice into distributive and corrective justice. Justice in exchange. Aristotle explores the role of justice in economic transactions. Political justice. He discusses justice within the framework of governance and laws, distinguishing between natural justice and conventional justice. Justice and virtue. Finally, he connects justice to the broader framework of ethical virtue, showing its role in the good life. Let's explore the key themes and ideas in Book 5. Justice as a virtue. Aristotle defines justice as the highest virtue because it is directed outward. It involves fairness in our relationships and society. Justice ensures harmony and order, making it indispensable for communal life. Two types of justice. Distributive justice. This governs the fair allocation of resources and honors in proportion to merit. Aristotle introduces the idea of geometric proportion, where rewards and responsibilities are distributed based on individual contributions. Corrective justice. This addresses fairness in transactions and rectifies wrongs. It applies an arithmetic approach, focusing on restoring balance, regardless of status or merit. Justice in exchange. Aristotle delves into economic transactions, emphasizing the importance of fairness in trade. He introduces the concept of proportional reciprocity, where exchanges should maintain balance and equity for both parties. Political justice. Aristotle distinguishes between natural justice, which is universal and unchanging, and conventional justice, which varies with societal norms and laws. He emphasizes that political justice arises within a legal framework and depends on the active participation of citizens. Justice and law. Justice aligns closely with laws, as laws aim to promote the common good. A just person abides by the law and seeks fairness in all dealings, whereas an unjust person disregards both law and equity. The relationship between justice and other virtues. Aristotle sees justice as a complete virtue because it involves all other virtues in its application to others. Acting justly requires wisdom, courage, and temperance, making it a comprehensive ethical practice. Book 5 provides a profound and systematic exploration of justice, but let's analyze its strengths and limitations. Strengths. Aristotle's distinction between distributive and corrective justice is still relevant today, providing a framework for understanding fairness in both social and economic contexts. His connection between justice and law highlights the importance of ethical governance and the rule of law in achieving societal harmony. Critiques. Aristotle's concept of distributive justice is tied to merit, which can be subjective and influenced by societal hierarchies. Modern readers might find this approach limited in addressing systemic inequalities. The distinction between natural and conventional justice raises questions about the universality of ethical principles and their cultural variability. Despite these critiques, Aristotle's analysis of justice offers timeless insights into the complexities of fairness and human relationships. To make Aristotle's ideas more relatable, let's consider some examples. Distributive justice. Imagine a group project where credit is allocated based on each member's contributions. This reflects the principle of rewarding individuals proportionally to their efforts. Corrective justice. Consider a car accident where one party is at fault. Corrective justice involves compensating the injured party to restore balance. Justice in exchange. Think of a trade where two parties exchange goods of equal value. Fair pricing ensures neither party feels exploited. These examples show how Aristotle's principles of justice play out in everyday situations, making them practical and actionable. Book 5 of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics offers a timeless exploration of justice as the cornerstone of ethical and social life. By examining its forms distributive, corrective, and political, Aristotle provides a framework for fairness that transcends individual conduct and shapes entire communities. Justice is not just a virtue, it's a practice that unites all others, guiding us toward harmony and mutual respect. Summary of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Book 6. Welcome back to our journey through Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. In this episode, we'll be exploring Book 6, where Aristotle delves into the intellectual virtues. If previous books focused on character and moral virtues, Book 6 shifts the focus to the mind and the intellectual faculties that guide ethical action. Aristotle introduces key concepts such as wisdom, understanding, and prudence, and explains how these virtues enable us to reason well in both theoretical and practical matters. Join us as we uncover Aristotle's insights into the role of the intellect in achieving a virtuous and fulfilling life. Book 6 is about the intellectual virtues, which Aristotle views as essential for leading a rational and ethical life. He identifies two parts of the soul that engage in reasoning: the scientific part, which deals with unchanging truths, and the calculative part, which concerns practical decision-making. Aristotle introduces several intellectual virtues that correspond to these faculties, laying the foundation for understanding how we think, decide, and act virtuously. The structure of Book 6 is as follows. Intellectual virtues. Aristotle defines and categorizes the intellectual virtues. The nature of prudence. He explores the concept of practical wisdom or prudence and its role in ethical life. The relationship between virtue and knowledge. Aristotle examines how intellectual virtues complement moral virtues. The role of contemplation. He discusses the importance of theoretical wisdom and its connection to human flourishing. Let's unpack the key themes and ideas in Book 6. The two parts of the rational soul. Aristotle divides the rational soul into two parts. The scientific part, which seeks knowledge of eternal truths. The calculative part, which deals with contingent and practical matters. Each part has corresponding intellectual virtues that guide its function. The 5 intellectual virtues. Aristotle identifies 5 intellectual virtues. Episteme, the ability to grasp eternal truths through demonstrative reasoning. Techne, the skill to produce things in accordance with reason. Phronesis, the capacity to deliberate well about what is good and beneficial in life. Sophia, a combination of scientific knowledge and intellectual intuition concerning the highest truths. Nous, the faculty that apprehends first principles directly. The importance of prudence. Aristotle highlights prudence as the intellectual virtue that bridges theory and practice. Prudence involves reasoning about ethical choices, helping us act in accordance with moral virtue. The interdependence of moral and intellectual virtues. Moral virtues, such as courage and temperance, require prudence to be exercised correctly. Similarly, intellectual virtues benefit from moral character, as an unethical person may misuse intellectual skills. The role of theoretical wisdom. Aristotle regards theoretical wisdom as the highest intellectual virtue, as it seeks knowledge of eternal and divine truths. However, he emphasizes that both theoretical and practical wisdom are essential for a complete life. Book 6 offers profound insights into the intellectual virtues, but let's evaluate its contributions and limitations. Strengths. Aristotle's detailed categorization of intellectual virtues provides a comprehensive framework for understanding human reasoning. The emphasis on prudence highlights the practical application of ethics, making virtue theory relevant to daily life. Aristotle's distinction between theoretical and practical wisdom may seem overly rigid to modern thinkers, as many intellectual pursuits blend these categories. His focus on prudence as a guide for moral virtue assumes a level of rationality that may not account for the complexities of human emotion and behavior. Despite these critiques, Aristotle's exploration of intellectual virtues remains foundational for philosophy, psychology, and education. To bring Aristotle's ideas to life, let's consider some examples. Scientific knowledge. A physicist studying the laws of motion is engaging in scientific knowledge, seeking universal truths about the natural world. Craft knowledge. A chef creating a gourmet dish uses craft knowledge, applying skill and reason to produce something tangible. Practical wisdom. A teacher deciding how to adapt their lessons to meet students' needs demonstrates practical wisdom. Theoretical wisdom. A philosopher contemplating the nature of existence embodies theoretical wisdom. These examples show how Aristotle's intellectual virtues apply across diverse aspects of life. In Book 6 of Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle provides a profound exploration of the intellectual virtues, highlighting the role of reason in ethical living. By distinguishing between theoretical and practical wisdom, he emphasizes that human flourishing requires both understanding eternal truths and making sound decisions in everyday life. Summary of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Book 7. Welcome back to our exploration of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. Today, we dive into Book 7, a thought-provoking analysis of self-control, pleasure, pain, and human weakness. In this book, Aristotle tackles the concept of akrasia, or lack of self-control, and contrasts it with self-mastery and moral virtue. He also examines the nature of pleasure and its role in the good life, along with different states of human character. Join us as we unravel Aristotle's insights into these timeless challenges that continue to resonate in modern life. Book 7 is Aristotle's attempt to address some of the most complex aspects of human behavior. Why people act against their better judgment, the nature of pleasure and pain, and how these influence the pursuit of virtue. It's a pivotal discussion, bridging the moral and intellectual virtues of earlier books with the practical challenges of living virtuously in the real world. The structure of Book 7 can be summarized as follows. States of character. Aristotle explores the spectrum of human character, from virtue to vice. The problem of akrasia. He examines why people act against their knowledge of what is good. The nature of pleasure. Aristotle discusses different types of pleasure and their role in the good life. The extremes of character. He investigates superhuman virtue and bestiality as extremes beyond the typical human moral spectrum. Let's delve into the major themes and ideas of Book 7. The states of character. Aristotle identifies 6 states of character. Divine virtue, rare and extraordinary excellence, surpassing typical human capacity. Virtue, the balance achieved by acting according to reason and moral principles. Self-control, the ability to overcome desires and align actions with rational judgment. Lack of self-control, acting against one's better judgment due to overwhelming desires. Vice, a habitual state of moral corruption. Bestiality, behavior driven by base instincts, akin to animalistic tendencies. The problem of akrasia. Aristotle explores why individuals sometimes act against their knowledge of what is good. He distinguishes 2 types of akrasia. Impulsive akrasia, acting out of sudden desire without deliberate thought. Weak-willed akrasia, succumbing to desires despite a deliberate understanding of what is right. Aristotle argues that akrasia occurs when reason is overwhelmed by passion, likening it to a temporary loss of rational control. The nature of pleasure. Aristotle critiques the view that all pleasures are bad or that pleasure is the ultimate good. He distinguishes between good pleasures, those that arise from virtuous activities and align with human flourishing. Bad pleasures, those stemming from excess or vice, leading to harm. Extremes of character. At one end of the spectrum is superhuman virtue, exemplifying rare excellence. At the other end is bestiality, behavior devoid of reason or morality, akin to wild animals. Book 7 offers fascinating insights into human behavior, but let's evaluate its strengths and limitations. Strengths. Aristotle's analysis of acrasia provides a nuanced understanding of why people struggle to align their actions with their values. The discussion of pleasure is balanced, rejecting both hedonism and asceticism while emphasizing the role of virtuous pleasures in the good life. Critiques. Aristotle's treatment of bestiality and superhuman virtue can feel abstract or overly idealized. His emphasis on reason as the dominant force in overcoming acrasia may not fully account for the complexities of emotional and psychological factors in human decision-making. To bring Aristotle's ideas to life, let's consider some relatable examples. Self-control versus acrasia. Imagine someone trying to stick to a diet but succumbing to the temptation of a chocolate cake. A self-controlled person resists the cake, while someone with acrasia eats it despite knowing it goes against their goals. Good versus bad pleasures. Watching a thought-provoking film can be an example of a good pleasure, while overindulgence in junk food may represent a bad pleasure. These examples illustrate the practical relevance of Aristotle's insights into character and pleasure. Book 7 of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics addresses some of the most enduring questions about human behavior. Why do we sometimes fail to act on our knowledge of what is right? How should we understand pleasure and its role in the good life? Summary of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Book 8. Welcome back to our journey through Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. Today, we explore Book 8, a profound reflection on the nature of friendship and its role in the good life. For Aristotle, friendship isn't just a pleasant addition to life, it's essential to human flourishing. In this book, he identifies different types of friendships and examines their significance for individuals and society. So, let's uncover the timeless wisdom of Aristotle as we delve into the philosophy of human connection. Book 8 is all about relationships. Aristotle highlights the importance of friendship in achieving eudaimonia, or the highest human good. He categorizes friendships into 3 types and explains how they function in personal and societal contexts. This exploration isn't just philosophical, it's deeply practical, offering insights into how we form meaningful connections and why they matter. The structure of Book 8 can be summarized as follows. The necessity of friendship. Why friendship is vital for a fulfilling life. The 3 types of friendship. Aristotle's classification based on utility, pleasure, and virtue. Friendship and society. The role of friendship in communities and governance. The qualities of true friendship. Insights into what makes virtuous friendships enduring and rare. Let's dive deeper into the key themes and ideas of Book 8. The necessity of friendship. Aristotle argues that no one would choose to live without friends, even if they had all other goods. Friendship is seen as a reflection of human nature, as people are inherently social beings who thrive in relationships. The 3 types of friendship. Friendships of utility. These relationships are based on mutual benefit. For example, a business partnership where both parties gain something tangible. They are often short-lived, ending when the utility ceases. Friendships of pleasure. These are based on mutual enjoyment, such as shared hobbies or entertainment. They tend to be common among young people and can fade when interests change. Friendships of virtue. The highest form of friendship, based on mutual respect and shared values. These friendships are rare and enduring because they are rooted in the goodness of each person. Friendship and society. Aristotle extends the concept of friendship to the community level, emphasizing its role in fostering social harmony and justice. He suggests that good governance relies on friendships between citizens, as mutual goodwill promotes stability and cooperation. The qualities of true friendship. Virtuous friendships require time and effort to develop, as they are based on a deep understanding of each other's character. Such relationships involve equality, reciprocity, and a shared pursuit of the good. Book 8 provides a thoughtful framework for understanding friendship, but let's assess its strengths and limitations. Strengths. Aristotle's categorization of friendships offers a timeless model that resonates across cultures and eras. His emphasis on virtuous friendships as essential to the good life highlights the moral dimension of human relationships. Some argue that Aristotle's focus on equality in friendships may not fully address relationships where power dynamics or inequalities exist. His ideal of virtuous friendships may seem unattainable for many, given the rarity of such connections. To make Aristotle's ideas relatable, let's consider some examples. Friendships of utility. Think of a carpool arrangement where both parties save on fuel costs. Friendships of pleasure. Picture a group of friends who bond over playing sports or watching movies. Friendships of virtue. Imagine two close friends who inspire each other to grow intellectually and morally, standing by each other in both triumph and adversity. These examples help us see how Aristotle's framework applies to everyday life. Book 8 of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics reminds us of the central role friendships play in a life well lived. Whether rooted in utility, pleasure, or virtue, friendships enrich our lives, offering joy, support, and purpose. Aristotle challenges us to cultivate virtuous relationships that inspire mutual growth and reflect the best of human character. Summary of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Book 9. Welcome back to our exploration of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. Today, we're diving into Book 9, a continuation of Aristotle's profound insights on friendship. In this book, Aristotle expands on the dynamics of friendships, their challenges, and their connection to self-love. He explores the tension between self-interest and the good of others, offering wisdom that resonates deeply with modern life. So, let's unravel Aristotle's thoughts on what makes relationships thrive and how they connect to the ultimate goal of happiness. Book 9 focuses on the intricacies of friendships and their role in achieving eudaimonia, or human flourishing. Aristotle examines issues such as how self-love impacts relationships, the balance between giving and receiving in friendships, how to navigate conflicts and maintain enduring bonds. Through these discussions, he reveals the interplay between individual virtues and the collective good. Here's the structure of Book 9 in a nutshell. Self-love as the foundation of friendship. How loving oneself influences one's ability to love others. The reciprocity of friendship, the give and take nature of relationships. Resolving friendship conflicts, how to handle disagreements and the dissolution of friendships. Friendship and happiness, the connection between virtuous relationships and the good life. Now, let's explore the key themes of Book 9. Self-love as the foundation of friendship. Aristotle argues that self-love is essential to forming genuine friendships. However, this is not selfish or narcissistic love. It's about valuing one's own virtue and acting in accordance with one's highest good. A virtuous person who loves themselves properly can extend that love to others, forming meaningful connections. The reciprocity of friendship. Friendships involve mutual goodwill and shared benefit. Aristotle distinguishes between friendships of utility, pleasure, and virtue, emphasizing that virtuous friendships require balanced reciprocity. For example, in a virtuous friendship, both individuals strive to enhance each other's character and happiness. Resolving friendship conflicts. Aristotle addresses the challenges of maintaining friendships, such as when one friend changes or the relationship becomes unequal. He suggests that virtuous friends should communicate openly and, if necessary, gracefully part ways when the friendship no longer serves its purpose. Friendship and happiness. For Aristotle, virtuous friendships are not just desirable, they are necessary for achieving happiness. These relationships provide moral support, inspiration, and shared joy, enriching life in a way solitary pursuits cannot. Book 9 offers profound insights, but let's critically evaluate its ideas. Strengths. Aristotle's link between self-love and friendship provides a compelling framework for understanding how healthy relationships form. His emphasis on reciprocity highlights the importance of mutual respect and effort in sustaining bonds. Critiques. Some modern readers may find Aristotle's focus on virtue-based friendships overly idealistic, given the complexities of human relationships. His approach assumes that individuals are capable of virtuous self-love, which may not always be the case. Let's ground Aristotle's ideas in real-life examples. Self-love as a foundation. Think of someone who has developed strong self-awareness and a sense of purpose. Such a person is more likely to form healthy, supportive friendships. Reciprocity in friendship. Consider two colleagues who mentor each other, sharing knowledge and encouragement to help each other grow professionally. Resolving conflicts. Imagine two friends who drift apart because their goals change. Instead of harboring resentment, they choose to honor their shared past while moving forward independently. These examples illustrate the practical wisdom Aristotle offers for navigating relationships. Book 9 of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics teaches us that self-love and virtuous relationships are inseparable from the pursuit of happiness. By fostering meaningful connections based on mutual respect and shared values, we enrich not only our lives but also the lives of those around us. So, what can we take away from Aristotle's wisdom? That the foundation of every great friendship begins with knowing and valuing yourself. Summary of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Book 10. Welcome back to our series on Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. Today, we've reached the final chapter, Book 10, where Aristotle concludes his exploration of ethics by addressing the ultimate purpose of life: happiness and the role of pleasure, virtue, and contemplation in achieving it. In this book, Aristotle ties together the insights from the previous sections and provides a climactic vision of the good life. He delves into the nature of pleasure, the supreme value of intellectual activity, and the role of education in cultivating virtue. Let's uncover the timeless wisdom of Aristotle as he guides us toward the pinnacle of human flourishing. Book 10 serves as the culmination of Aristotle's ethical philosophy. In it, he revisits key themes like happiness and pleasure, emphasizing the importance of intellectual virtue and contemplation as the highest form of human activity. Aristotle also stresses the necessity of habituation and education in shaping moral character, bridging ethics with practical life and societal well-being. Pleasure and its role in the good life. Aristotle analyzes the nature of pleasure, its relationship to virtue, and why it's often misunderstood. Happiness and contemplation. He defines contemplation as the highest human activity and explains its role in achieving eudaimonia. The importance of education. Aristotle concludes with a discussion on moral education and the role of society in fostering virtuous citizens. Pleasure and its role in the good life. Aristotle distinguishes between different types of pleasures, noting that not all are equally valuable. He criticizes hedonistic views that equate pleasure with the highest good, arguing that true pleasure arises from virtuous activity. For example, the pleasure derived from intellectual pursuits or moral actions is superior to bodily pleasures. Happiness and contemplation. Aristotle elevates contemplation as the highest form of human activity. This is because contemplation engages our rational faculties, which Aristotle sees as the defining feature of humanity. Contemplation is self-sufficient, enduring, and intrinsically fulfilling, making it the ultimate pathway to eudaimonia. The importance of education. Aristotle emphasizes the role of habituation and education in developing virtue. He argues that ethical behavior isn't innate, but cultivated through practice and societal influence. A well-structured education system is essential for creating citizens capable of living virtuous lives. Book 10 offers profound insights, but it's worth examining its implications. Strengths. Aristotle's focus on intellectual activity as the pinnacle of happiness provides a compelling vision of human potential. His nuanced view of pleasure helps us differentiate between fleeting gratifications and enduring fulfillment. The emphasis on education underscores the connection between individual ethics and societal well-being. Aristotle's prioritization of contemplation may feel inaccessible or overly idealistic to those who find fulfillment in other forms of activity. His ideas on education presuppose a level of social structure and governance that may not align with modern pluralistic societies. Let's bring Aristotle's ideas to life with relatable examples. Pleasure. Imagine the difference between the fleeting pleasure of binge-watching a TV series and the deeper satisfaction of mastering a new skill or helping someone in need. Contemplation. Consider the fulfillment of philosopher or scientist experiences while uncovering a new truth or solving a complex problem. Education. Picture a society where schools not only teach academics but also instill values like empathy, justice, and responsibility, creating citizens who contribute positively to their communities. Book 10 of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics ties together the rich tapestry of ideas we've explored throughout this series. Aristotle's ultimate message is clear. The good life is one of virtue, guided by reason, and crowned by the joy of intellectual contemplation. He leaves us with a vision of ethics that is both deeply personal and profoundly social, reminding us that true happiness comes from aligning our lives with our highest potential. Thank you for joining us on this philosophical journey through Aristotle's Nicomachean ethics. If this series has inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more explorations of great philosophical works. And as always, take a moment to reflect on how you can apply these timeless lessons to your own pursuit of the good life.